Great job.
Well, it was referred to, and we all know it. We don't want to admit it. But as a profession, we are almost the most mentally unhealthy profession, barring only the dentists. We are the most depressed, the most suicidal, the most relationally challenged. Right, Katrina? We're going to hear more about that in a moment. But without the leadership, the empathy, and the capacity that these leaders have brought to their law firms, they wouldn't be the outstanding law firms that they are. You watch those three law firms. Literally, you watch their performance over time. And then you ask yourself, how did they do that? Well, it's in large part because of the diversity of thought and behavior and being that those three women represent. And if you look around, you probably see more women here than you're accustomed to seeing at an innovation conference. If you look at the platform of presenters, I assure you, you have not seen more women in a presenting role than you've seen at this conference, except unless they're exclusively for women and by women, and that's fine too. That's intentional, and it was not an accident. And Kat and I were extremely intentional in making sure that this was not the typical lack of cognitive diversity that we see most often. Because it's cognitive diversity that will enable us to become increasingly innovative over time, and there's enough science to support that, that if you want to dispute it, I'll be happy to have that conversation with you. But without that diversity, we can't solve these big problems. Nor can we help those of us who are mentally impaired because of either our wiring or the system in which we find ourselves, because it has to bring that diversity to the table for us to be better at what we do. It will go unnamed, but I was recently asked to speak at a legal tech conference, and I asked the question, why are these all old white guys? I'm one. I may not be the oldest white guy here, but I'm close. And I couldn't understand why a legal tech conference had so few women who were a part of, and people of color who were a part of the presentation. And this was the answer. Well, you don't understand, Mr. Bridgesmith. There are only 1.7% of women in tech. So it's just representative. There's a word for that. It starts with a B, ends with a T, and I'm not going to speak the letters in between. Because this is proof positive that there's enormous work being done in innovating in law by women. Let's not forget the cognitive diversity that it takes to make a change in the way things are. And therefore, I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker. Shauna Hoffman has just become a dear friend. She is the co-leader of the IBM Cognitive Legal Initiative. And as I just referred to briefly before, she gets to play with IBM Q, the quantum computer that is now operating at 20 qubits per second. If you're anything about a quantum person, you know quantum people say, if you think you understand quantum, you don't understand quantum. But she gets to work with that, and with IBM Watson, totally focused on law. What an incredible opportunity, and how blessed and fortunate we are to have you. Thank you, Shauna.
Hey, thank you for this opportunity. All right, let's see if my clicker's working. It doesn't look like it is. Let's see. Oh, there's another one? Okay. Okay, let's see. There we go. So, like many of you in the room, I sat at a conference one day, and I was thinking about my career. And I was going, okay, I'd been in e-discovery, practicing e-discovery for about a decade and a half. Was wonderful. I had a blast. Founded a women's group in that industry called Women in E-Discovery. We have over 5,000 members worldwide. Still going strong. A lot of fun. Wrote a book, became a textbook for e-discovery in many law schools. So it was a great career, but I was kind of at the end looking at it going, okay, there has to be something next. Has to be something better. So I was watching Jeopardy one night with my daughter, who was about 13 at the time, and she, I don't know, we were both fascinated. Watson, this computer, was winning. and winning $1 million in the end. And so I looked at her and I said, you know, I'm gonna go work for IBM. I'm gonna build Watson legal stuff. And she just kind of rolled her eyes because she's 13 and walked off. And I thought, perfect challenge for me. I'm going to go do this. So after about 4 months of having discussions with IBM and them not knowing what to do with me, they're like, we don't have anyone like you. And I kept on telling them, I would love to come. I want to build out Watson Legal. And everything I would hear back was, what is that? And as I started to describe the practice that we have today, I was very fortunate when I came to IBM that another gentleman also who has a legal background, he's a former insurance attorney, Brian Kuhn, is my co-leader. And he was in a totally different division in IBM than I'm in right now. And I kept on hearing every day, have you met Brian? Have you met Brian? So finally, Brian and I met and immediately hit it off. We both had the same vision, and so we've been building the practice and leading that now for a few years. You know, one of the big things is, I keep on hearing, I mean, AI, so many different definitions of it. Artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. I mean, you can probably go through the list in your head. But in the end, what is the promise of AI? AI is going to radically change the world. And what we're able to do with artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, however you'd like to talk about it, is to be able to do 3 key things. So as we start to go through, we can understand, reason, and learn. Our human nature allows us to, of course, understand, reason, and learn. We are at the capacity with computers to also teach them how to do that. So we've gone from the age of programming and of course are now fully getting into being able to teach a system how to be us. And I'll go through a couple of use cases here in just a moment. We have a huge disruption going on, as many of you have seen. How many of you work in corporations or law firms that say, I am a technology company? That is a law firm. That is a transportation company, that is an oil and gas company. I have heard it all. Everyone out there is saying they are a technology company. Disruption is happening. Us in the legal field, as we start to look at it, you know, we want to keep our field the same way it's been for forever. Unfortunately, we are going to be forced to change because our clients are forced to change. The entire world is changing right now. I heard Bill Gates say recently that in the next 10 years, he believes, and actually I think most of us believe now, that technology is going to change more in the next 10 years than it has changed at all since the dawn of mankind. So we have a huge decade coming up of just major radical technology changes. Some of that will be quantum computing, and what the promise of quantum computing is to be able to, you know, compute things at a speed that is just out of our reach at this moment. Right now, Watson is super cool. I get to talk to Watson a lot. And when we have a conversation with Watson, right now now Watson is correct when Watson responds. Watson can read 800 million pages in less than a second. Now, compute that in your head for a moment. How long does it take you to read a book? If it's a really good one, it's over the weekend. Watson can read it immediately. Here's what's also crazy, is Watson remembers every word Watson has read. Us as human beings, unfortunately, we can't. And so Watson, making it kind of your right hand, is going to be the most amazing opportunity for us as we continue to move on in the field, because Watson can remember everything that you have read, and then of course Watson has read together. Then you can ask Watson questions. So there's a lot of advanced technologies being able to happen, and that conversations back and forth when I'm asking Watson questions, depending on the corpus of the data Watson is having to go out and look at, let's say it's 800 million pages, for Watson it can read through that, but to reason, as I had spoken about a few minutes ago, to reason through that information, it does take about 30 seconds to get that correct response back. With quantum computing, the promise of that is to go down to under 6 seconds. So we can have a human-to-human conversation, human-like to human conversation with artificial intelligence. Now, one of the things that we do at IBM is our homework. And there is not one IBMer that will sit and tell you we just jump into anything. We always do our homework, sometimes even more than we need to. Over the past year, Brian and I have had over 150 workshops and met with legal departments from corporations, of course government agencies. We've met with law firms. Probably many of you in the room, many law firms I know have mentioned today. We've sat down with your partners to find out what are your pain points today and work through an innovation plan that assists you to actually move forward in this roadmap. And we have heard and learned a lot of things. So as we start to look at it, we have 76% of executives surveyed report that increasing automation will have positive impact on operational efficiency. These are your executives actually saying this. We start to see 75% of operational executives, and I think we just heard from a few of those in the room, surveyed said intelligent machines will meaningfully impact their business performance in the next 3 years. So that is a huge change, 75%. 70% of executives surveyed expect intelligent machines to lead to higher value work for employees. So I am the first to tell you, if you have not heard this yet, robots will not be taking over your jobs. What robots are going to do is to take away the things that annoy you, those things that are the pain in your side, those things that are repetitive that you have to do. For example, reviewing invoices. It's a great thing for Watson to be able to read those invoices and then respond with mistakes and things that you may need to change in those. Watson can do the tasks that you are repeatedly doing and having to do in your day-to-day work and provide you with an increased amount of time to be able to practice law and do the things that you went to law school to do. Now, when you start to look at artificial intelligence, a lot of people, as we've gone through these workshops, will ask us, you know, what do you recommend? It's always what do you recommend? I just want your top 10. And unfortunately, we really do need to sit down. We need to find out the makeup of the firm or the corporation really do understand the innovation that you'd like to have happen. And there are not always good use cases. Often it's we come into the workshops and I'll hear from the attorneys, yeah, build me pretty much a robot lawyer, which is not anything that you would need. If we need to narrow that down into, instead of boiling the ocean, into 1 or 2 use cases to start out with that are very simple. You know, maybe good use cases that are easy for you to understand or start to learn how to train artificial intelligence, which will be a wonderful skill set for attorneys to learn the next few years. So. Some of the industry challenges. Now, Larry had mentioned this before, but I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into it. AI trained on bad data. One of the biggest issues I see moving forward, not just in the legal industry, but all industries as a whole, is your artificial intelligence is like training your child. If you train your child with bad information, that child is not going to stand a chance, unfortunately. Or most of the time will not. In AI is the same thing. You have a system that comes to you that has been maybe, you know, trained like a 5-year-old, but can read and is super duper smart. So you need to be able to provide the data and the information for that AI system like you would do with your child. Provide it with the best information, the best schools, the best academic, you know, varieties. And there's so many important things. Diverse information. You don't want your child just to only see one small box of the world. Open up the entire world to artificial intelligence. That is everything from diversity, you know, understanding, you know, how different races would react to whatever you're training AI on, down to kind of what we saw last night, which was an eye-opening idea for me, is different personalities. You know, I haven't used that side of my brain. I haven't sung in years. I used to sing on stage when I was in my early 20s. I haven't sung since then, but it was a whole different side of my brain, and I went back so happy last night. But, you know, and I thought I've been spending so much of my life in a logical role building robots and things that it was so nice to open that up, and it reminded me, you know, not only is it diversity we need, but we need to include all types of people. Should we have musicians on our teams that are developing AI? I actually think we need to, and I'm going to start talking about that because of yesterday, so thank you, Larry. Because I do believe that we need to diversify our population, but make sure we include all. Because the things that we are building today not only will affect our society now, we have to remember it is going to affect generations. I have no clue how long this technology is going to last. This may be the base. Think about 100 years from now. This may be the base of something that is tremendously world-altering, human-altering for 100 years from now, that they are still using the base of what we build today. So, gosh, I have so much I want to tell you. A way forward. All right. And I do have to mention blockchain. One of the struggles that I had practicing in e-discovery is when I was asked by any judge out there, they would always ask you, do you have all the data? And like, I just wanted to, most of the time, you know, almost cry, going, I tried, but there were servers on dirt floors in, you know, China that we got to, and we don't even know if we got all of them. So, you know, it is random, so many of the things that we have to run into when it comes to the data crisis. We have a humongous data crisis. We have so much data. We've got dark data. We have data that we don't even know we have. It's probably sitting on hard drives in your garage. We don't know what data we can trust. Blockchain will help us in being that foundational promise of AI and where we can actually store the information for our data and know that it can be trusted data. So blockchain plus AI. Now I will tell you, for those of you in the room who I think we've got quite a few blockchain experts, definitely talk to them, pick their brains a bit. This is, of course, a new technology coming into the marketplace. I had been kind of laughed at a couple of years ago when I started talking about the convergence of AI and blockchain. I think most people are seeing it now. Blockchain alone is kind of a very flat technology, I'll say. With artificial intelligence with it, you can actually search the data. And you can search everything. And so we start to see a smart system go into the blockchain and then be able to assist with searching and actually bringing so many new things to light. So we start to see ownership of data and intelligence that's self-sovereign to the individual. You know, one of the things that I'm excited about, especially after everything came out with Facebook, was the opportunity with blockchain to kind of have my own house and be able to open up the door to who I want to open it up to. Open up separate rooms of data and information. If I want to keep my pictures to myself and only share them with a few people, I first off will know with blockchain who's opened those, but then also be able to provide to them access in how I want to provide it versus someone in society saying, okay, you've checked the box and agreed to some crazy agreement that I don't even remember doing, honestly. And my data is now out and being shared with the world. Transparency. Transparency is so huge, especially in society moving forward. Software that uses self-sovereign data and intelligence that is auditable. AI is going to have to be auditable moving forward. There are a lot of systems out there, they're saying black box. We are fully at IBM getting away from that black box and being able to be more transparent in how we've created the systems. I've met with a lot of government agencies. One of the biggest concerns they have is when we start to have this artificial intelligence that is thinking on its own, the decisions that the artificial intelligence is making, sometimes maybe bad decisions. And who is responsible for that? Again, a lot of good legal questions. I think you guys are actually going to be busier as we start to move forward with society moving into AI and blockchain more. Governance of software that uses self-sovereign data and intelligence that is transparent and also algorithmic. So we start to see a new level of governance. I think another area that I would get into immediately is governance. It's a great practice area moving forward. Let's see. Okay, a couple use cases. How am I doing on time?
You've got 5 minutes and 37 seconds.
Awesome. I can show you good stuff. Okay, so this is one of my favorite judges, Judge Capizzi, and he is using Watson in his courtroom. We started working with him a couple years ago, and he just makes me just so happy. So he has taken Watson, and for 18 months, trained Watson on all the data that comes into his courtroom, and he says it's about an average about 600 pages per juvenile, because it's in juvenile court, 600 pages per juvenile. And he has trained Watson on how to narrow that down to the areas that he's very interested in for each case. He can narrow it down to 2 to 3 pages per individual. Watson automatically does that, provides those summaries to him. He says it gives him on an average 5 to 6 minutes more in front of each juvenile. And then on top of that, he's saving a day a week of research he was having to do before. Now, it took him 18 months to train Watson. He was one of the first using our Watson Care Manager, and is honestly one of my heroes in AI and law. Really amazing. So I've had the wonderful fortune to speak in Ohio with him in October, so I'm looking forward to that. All right, Project NDA, or the World NDA Project. So this is an AI and blockchain consortium. They've all gotten together, and we have an NDA system that's powered by AI and blockchain. So those NDAs can be shared amongst the ecosystem. So again, private blockchain, but a blockchain that is everyone can see those NDAs amongst themselves. Great opportunity. I do love the Global Legal Blockchain Consortium. We are a part of that as IBM. Our attorneys are. We also, Brian and I are part of the board. Many companies, a lot of law firms, corporations are getting together. It's free to join. You just need to do a POC that you can share amongst everyone. So I highly recommend joining our other legal brothers and sisters in this. Corporate legal department. Oh, this one's fun. So of the 150 plus workshops that we did, the one complaint we heard the most was legal billing. So Brian and I went out to build a legal billing solution and honestly surprised ourselves. Watson, of course, can read every bit of information that is in the legal bills. And we started to realize, first off, that the codes in the bills were 40% incorrect most of the time. When Watson was reading the text, Watson was able to then clarify and show the text of the bills, the line items, when in comparison to the billing guidelines, that often there were mistakes, a lot of issues that had happened. One of our very big corporate clients saved and is continuing to save about $392 million because those invoices were incorrect many of the time. Huge, huge legal spend for that client, though. And AI and analytics. This is probably not everyone's best friend in this room, but this is a really cool solution. It's called Premonition AI, and a good friend of mine had come up with this many years ago. And it can tell you which attorneys actually win in front of which judges. So a lot of analytics and, of course, AI goes into this, and quite a fascinating when you start to look at which attorneys are doing well in front of which judges, and kind of some of those reasons why. I've used it myself in cases that I've managed with my Homeless Services program to pick attorneys that work very well in front of certain judges in those different practice areas. Okay. And AI chatbots for all. So how many of you have seen Do Not Pay? Yes. One of my favorite solutions. So Joshua is a Stanford student who got free credits on Watson. And so in his time for free credits, he actually he created a solution that helps fight parking tickets. Now, it was a personal need for him that turned into a huge nonprofit business. He doesn't take any money from this, but a huge nonprofit business. He had gotten a lot of tickets when he was home in London and decided to build a chatbot for everyone else because he thought that injustice was happening. He is now in many other practice areas and building out things for the population that don't have, the finances to hire attorneys. So really cool. And I think you had mentioned Ross. I don't know if anyone from Ross is here. So where's my Ross people? Wait, I didn't hear. Oh, stand up. Wait, oh, you're in the back. I'm looking at the guy in front of you. That is so fun. Could you please? That would be really fun for me. So after we are done, you definitely have to go talk to these guys. So they have built a super amazing solution that is, again, AI-enabled lawyer bots, but I will let him go ahead and talk with you about that himself. He's definitely one of the key people in the room who has been with a company. Were you one of the originals with Andrew? First employee. Oh my God, even better. I have lots of questions for you. I didn't realize the connection there. But first employee, one of the first companies in the legal industry in AI. So they've been through all the bumps and bruises and definitely can share with you what actually works today. Legal blockchain. I'm going to have Ian stand up for just a minute. Yes. So Ian, can you talk loud enough to share real quick? And I have just enough time. Oh, wait, shoot. Just ran out of time. Can we please have Ian? I wanted to give this opportunity, yeah, please, for him to share what he's built. I am truly amazed at everything that you've done, and you've taken something that was personal and beginning to help the world. So please.
Yeah, so thanks, Shauna. Basically, we were at a hackathon out in New York in October of 2017. It was a Startup Weekend Blockchain Edition, and so our team was able to hack a solution together to decentralize immunization records via the Integra blockchain and using IBM's Bluemix as a hosting site. So we hacked that solution together in about 48 hours, got it actually working with a live demo, and then been working on that ever since. So really just interested in, fixing the very, very chaotic healthcare industry, and similar to a lot of the legal issues that we experience here with interoperability. So I'd love to talk to anyone about that as well, and just trying to fix these huge issues that are very prevalent in society today.
Mm-hmm. So, and I have to mention...
He's 16
yes.
years old when he did that. He's 17 now.
I know. You give me every bit of faith in your generation. And I have children in your generation, so it makes me extremely excited to see where the world is moving. So again, Global Legal Blockchain Consortium, I highly recommend that. And then here's my last thing. I believe we are grossly unprepared for what is about to come. Over the next 10 years, the advancements in technology are going to be tremendously fast. As legal professionals, we have got to get on board. We have to grab as many other legal professionals as we can and continue to push them forward and push them into this area. It's going to happen very fast. If we don't come to the table, we are going to end up being regulated out. We're going to be asked out. They're going to come up with newer professions than the law to be able to get the answers that they need. So we need to grab as many attorneys as we can and bring them into this space. And I'll go ahead and digress to the next speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
We can do a few Q&As?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, give her an applause, and think about your question. You talk about someone who is at the cutting edge of legal innovation. You're speaking with her. So what questions do you have of Shauna?
Oh, no.
Come on. It's burning inside you right now. Yes.
How large is your legal department?
Oh, okay.
How many people are working on it?
So our team, so here's what's fun at IBM. We have almost 500,000 employees. So the way that we work as a matrixed organization, we don't have specific people assigned to our division. It is as you need them. So we have legal practitioners. There's a group of about 30 of us, and then when we need technologists, we just go out to the ether of IBM and kind of pick and choose who we need. Yeah.
Question?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
What does Watson look like?
Well, it depends on if you've seen Watson or Pepper. Pepper is this cute, super cute little robot, and she's like tiny. And then Watson kind of looks like just a regular screen. So there's really not a persona in Watson. Now, you might have seen Sophia and some of the other bots that really do look a little human-like. But we have not done that because we believe that Watson is augmenting, and Peppers are augmenting human beings, so we don't want it to look like a human being. It's here just to help you as a system.
But actually, physically, like how much
humongous
space
server.
does it take? It's just
Well, actually, it's
box?
really, let's see, this big. It's a box. It's a black box. It's not massive. Now, the quantum computing systems are much, much bigger. And if you've seen those are, tall and but this wide.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the most exciting development in the near future?
Oh, gosh. I think that, I don't know if it would be that it's the most exciting. What I'm excited about is that everyone is here listening and wanting to do it. Because Brian and I have been alone for many years. So I'm just excited to see the legal profession in general jumping in and being interested in building solutions. I think that if I was to give one recommendation, definitely start small. Pick a very simple use case and then grow from there. But don't not pick a use case. Just pick one. I guess even if it's big, just start. Just get started now. Because if you think about it, AI you're training today, you're getting the base of something in 5 years that, again, it's training, so it grows and grows and grows. It's not programmed, so it's not static. And so when you start today, by the time in 5 years, you're going to have an amazing built-out system that really, really knows things. Or
Sorry, it's my field of study, so I had to ask. So when you're talking about augmented Watsons, so and it's learning from me, are you thinking about collaboration between Watsonses? So my Watson, his Watson would collaborate around the experience?
Yeah.
And then following question, if we do that, how do we assure that my Watson would not betray me and tell Larry about all the other stuff that I'm doing?
Okay, so I think that the answer that combines that a little bit, number one is going to be transparency. We do have a lot of open source projects going on, and then you and I had spoken about that earlier. We're working with Apple, we're working with Microsoft. We are bringing a lot of this out as open source so we can actually start sharing technology amongst ourselves. I think that with artificial intelligence, having it betray you, that's why it's really important how it's trained. You can't just willy-nilly it. You know, you really need to have a good group of people that are diverse and are intelligent in those specific areas to train the system. So it is the best of the best. You know, you wouldn't want, let's say we've got a great medical system called Watson Oncology. You would not want Watson Oncology to have been trained by medical students. You want them trained by the doctors that have trained Watson. So oncology doctors from Sloan Kettering, Mayo Clinic, you know, really important. Think about that in the legal space also. We need the best of the best, because if that AI system is going to be giving advice, we won't say it's advice, but going to be augmenting the person who's giving advice by sharing information that is truthful, then the main thing is that information needs to be the best information available out there.
One last question. One of my former partners, I only have 6,000 former partners. It's at least 63 law firms I've been through, so please.
I wonder if you could address prediction a little bit, and I have in mind two contexts. First of all, what particular behavior by businesses is most apt to result in disputes? And secondly, when disputes arise, is Watson involved in predicting outcomes? Litigation, arbitration, other outcomes?
Okay. It's a very good question. Of course, everyone is newer getting into this area. There's only been one case so far that I've seen in Alabama, and there wasn't really a positive or negative result. It was just kind of weird, where Alexa was seen by the judge as having, should have been read her rights before anyone went into Alexa to get information from Alexa. It did not go any further than that because there was an agreement between both parties. So in regards to a system predicting outcomes and there being any legal matters, I know that there are some newer cases, but I haven't seen any decisions recently. That's one of the reasons I think we need to have these discussions, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about how we move forward in working groups, because we have to be able to then all agree as a group and then take that to Congress, take that to our governing bodies to say, these are concerns that we have. Here is our recommendation. I don't know the answer to that. I know at IBM we were being very cautious as we're building things to make sure that if there is predictive information being given, that in the end it's the human making the choice and not the system making the choice. So it is the human in the end who would be, of course, liable.
Thank you. We're going to move on now and ask our guests to come join us. Katrina and Mary and Patrick. Marie. If you want, you and I probably have old notions of IBM, that company, you know, Big Blue. Go to IBM Think, which is their most recent conference, which was a global conference in which they brought all of their conferences into one. Watch some of the video. This is not the old IBM. It's collaborative. It believes in open source. It works with everybody. Just understand this is a different world. When IBM moves into the collaborative context, we've got to understand the world has changed. So Shauna, thank you so much. She'll be back with us. IBM is one of our Revolution sponsors. You'll hear from both her and our other Revolution sponsors immediately after at the cocktail hour. So you'll hear more from them. But we're delighted with this group. Katrina Lee, professor at OSU. I'm sorry, I'm from Michigan. I just have to say that. Go Blue, go Blue. So Katrina has been working with all of us as sick lawyers to get over it. And she's going to help us with this question of what does technology have to do with all of that. So Katrina, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As Larry mentioned, I live and work just a little ways up north at the Ohio State University, Moritz College of Law. Did you see me give you the thumbs down behind your back? Yeah, it's a very friendly rivalry. So I teach at Ohio State University, Moritz College of Law. I've been there for 7 years, since 2011. I am on the dispute resolution faculty at OSU. I also teach legal writing, and I teach the business of law. And that's what I will be talking with you about today. Are my slides up? Oh, great. So what I strive to do as a law professor, regardless of what I'm teaching, I'm striving for my students to be nimble, to be good listeners, to have empathy, to be curious. I want to cultivate in them a desire to be lifelong learners, and also to have a growth mindset. And perhaps most importantly, and this is what Larry was alluding to, I want my students to take good care of themselves and take good care of each other. So that's what I'm really passionate about, no matter what I'm teaching at The Ohio State University. So teaching, it's been so rewarding. It's such hard work, but so rewarding. I get to do lots of fun things. This past summer, I was at Oxford University. I taught a business negotiations class. It was a joy. I brought my husband with me. I brought my 2 kids. I have 2 daughters, ages 8 and 10. And kids, they're the best innovators, right? You're all parents, you know this. They are great innovators. So we set a goal for the summer. My kids did. They said, Mom, you know what I want to do? I want to be on Google Maps Street View. These are like 8 and 10-year-olds. Like, I want to go to Oxford, and I want to be on Google Maps Street View. Do you all know what Street View is? Yeah. Like, you click on a location, you can see, like, the buildings and cars and people. And I'm like, so I'm a mom here, right? Not a cultivator of ideas or innovation. I'm like, come on. What are the chances that you're going to go down a street and the Google camera's going to be there, and they're going to get you on Street View? Come on, kids, let's come up with the better one. Maybe, like, let's go see 5 museums. How about that? So they're like, no, Mom, we're going to do this. So sure enough, we're in Oxford, England. We're walking down a big promenade street, and there's a dude. He's got a camera. Have you seen the Google camera? It was actually a Google guy with a camera on his head. And my daughters get so excited. Even then, I'm like, no, look, this isn't going to happen. Like, he's not going to get you on camera. But they're, like, jumping, and they're like, me, right? Okay, so I'm like, okay, calm down. It's okay. Like, maybe you got on camera. So then we go back home to Ohio eventually, and just kind of on a lark, we get on Google Maps Street View, and lo and behold, they're my daughters. They got on the camera. And thank you, Google. Their faces are blurred. They're blurred out for privacy. Thank you, Google. So that is the best souvenir ever for my daughters. They can look up on Google forever and know that they're there. It didn't cost a cent, and it was their very own idea. So we're going to pick up on that in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about where I come from. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and I went to Berkeley. I'm a double Berkeley. Any Golden Bears out here? No. Seriously, wow. Okay, so graduated from Berkeley and then practiced law in San Francisco for 12 years. I was a corporate litigator. I was an equity partner at my law firm for about 6 of my 12 years. And then I took a break. I became a stay-at-home mom for about a year to these 2 crazy innovators. And after that, I started on faculty at The Ohio State University about 7 years ago. And I've been thinking about technology. I've been writing and reading and doing a lot, kind of touching on technology. And I could talk about any of those topics. So, for example, I wrote an article about how we should link mindfulness curriculum with legal tech education in the law school curriculum. So I wrote an article about that, but that's not the one I'm going to talk about today. I also am working on a piece at the intersection of professional responsibility and technology, but I'm not going to talk about that today. What I'd like to talk about today is a class that I teach, the Business of Law seminar class. And the reason why I've chosen to talk about that today is because it's something that, and it goes back to what Professor Carroll said right at the beginning of our talks today about sprinkling the salt throughout the curriculum. I think about sprinkling the salt across the country throughout all the law schools. Because today, you've heard from some great law school innovators like Kat, like Larry, like Allison. And I like to think we've got some good ones at Ohio State. There are a whole bunch of law schools not represented here that are just trying to get started. Or maybe they're not even thinking about it quite yet because, like Dean Guthrie acknowledged, there are a lot of barriers. There are a lot of things in the way. But I think that every school, every law school, can have a course like what we have at The Ohio State University. So back in 2011, my colleague Debbie Merritt, she started a Business of Law seminar. Back then it was pioneering. We're talking about 2011. Debbie now serves on the ABA Commission on the Future of Legal Education. I was so honored to be able to take over the seminar a few years ago, and I've been experimenting with it, evolving it ever since. And so I want to talk about a few main features of this seminar class that I teach to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we are doing at law schools and that we are doing with this particular course. Okay? So first thing I want to talk about is that, and it's very important, I've heard this word used today, the course that I teach is holistic. Okay? And what I mean by that is we talk about a whole bunch of different topics. We don't just talk about blockchain. We don't just talk about artificial intelligence. We will talk about all different topics like mental health in the legal profession. We will talk about topics like access to justice, the impact of legal tech. And my students, I can almost see it in their eyes sometimes. They start to see the connections among legal tech, access to justice, mental health, legal education reform. So it gives them this great context. I like to think my course does that. And how do I do it? I have guest speakers come into my class and from all different parts of legal. So I'll have someone like Kanor Chopra, the co-founder of Elevate Services. She will speak to my class. I might have the Chief Information Officer of Baker Hostetler, who's right in Ohio, come speak to my class. And I might also have the managing partner of a law firm or the Chief Litigation Officer of Nationwide, who's in downtown Columbus, come speak to my class. And again, my students are starting to see the connections among these silos represented by the people who are in my classroom. Okay? So one main feature of this course, and my call to action to all of you, is to help the law school in your community, whatever law school that is, go work with that law school and come up with a course that's holistic, that's diverse, and that's local. Okay, so I've talked about the holistic part. Now I'd like to talk about another feature of the course, and that is diverse. This is really, really, really important to me. I want my students to take to heart that they should be reaching across their organization, across silos, right, to go back to the theme of this entire summit. And for me to get that point across, I feel that my course has to be diverse. It has to be aspirationally diverse. We cannot have this conversation about innovation if it is not, it can't be effective. This conversation about innovation cannot be effective unless it is diverse. And it can be very specific. The conversation about innovation can't be effective if it's a male-dominated conversation, if it's a white male-dominated conversation. Our conferences have to be diverse, and I am dedicated to having my course be diverse. And so I'm working on it. I had 11 guest speakers in my class this semester. 8 were women, 4 were women of color. I'm still working on it, okay? So that is one. So it's holistic, it's diverse, and I work on it being local as well. And this is where the sprinkling the salt comes in, right? A lot of you, I know, a lot of you, you travel the country. Some of you travel the world, and you bring your expertise and your talent to different cities all around the world, and that is great. Keep doing that. But in every community, there are lawyers and experts who we can learn from. And so I do draw from the national talent and the world talent right here at OSU, but I also go right downtown, and that's a nice scenic picture of downtown Columbus. And I have folks from downtown Columbus come speak to my students. And I think that that is really, really important. So when you go speaking around the country and around the world, that's wonderful. Keep doing it. But we also have to be very careful to make sure to help cultivate that local talent and let that local talent shine. Let that local talent have a voice. And so I'm very cognizant of that when I think about who it is that I put in front of my students. Okay. I want to talk about 2 activities that I do in my class with my students. I'll talk about something I call Pitch Day at OSU and about their research papers, and I'm going to wrap up. Pitch Day. This is something that it's what it says. My students engage in pitches. They deliver pitches to in-house counsel. This semester, I brought in counsel from Nationwide and from Red Capital Group, and my students got into law firm teams, fictional law firm teams, and they pitched. And guess what? They had to talk about stuff like the diversity of their team. They had to talk about value add. They had to talk about cost efficiency. And the beautiful thing is, they got to test their ideas, right? They had already engaged in this holistic course with guest speakers, and they absorbed all these ideas. We did lots of readings, lots of discussions, and then they get to test and articulate their ideas, and then they can get tested against these real-life counsel who they're pitching to. It's all simulated. They give each other critiques. They do peer critiques. This is a wonderful interactive exercise that I have found students really embrace. Okay, so we do Pitch Day, and the second big project my students do is they write their own paper. They do their own research. I challenge my students to pick a passion problem, something they're very passionate about, and do something about it. Do the research, do the reading, and then draft a paper and give a presentation. So again, they're up, they're talking, they're giving a presentation about their draft, and we're workshopping. Everyone reads everyone else's drafts. So it's really, truly interactive. And they're problem solving. They're trying to solve big problems. I am so proud of my students. My students have written on issues ranging from the advancement of women in law firms. My students have written about mental health in the legal profession. They've written about what's the place of blockchain in law firms. They've written about access to justice in rural areas. So they've picked these big topics. My students aren't shy about it. They find something. After that holistic approach that we take, they find something that they feel really passionate about. So I challenge all of you, think about the community where you live and work, and think about the law schools in your area. Do they have a course like the one that I've described, that's holistic, that's diverse, that's local, that has some local focus to it? And think about what role you can play, okay, in helping to start a course like that. And I'm happy to be available to any of you as a resource. Help your law schools get their students on a path to having these conversations, to being curious, to having empathy, and help them run with their ideas, just like my daughters did, run with their idea literally through the streets of Oxford. Help our law schools, help our students make progress in the world, and that's what I want my students to be. I challenge them to be change agents. Help them get on this path to progress that's meaningful, that's authentic, that's sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Katrina. Or excuse me, Professor Lee. I forget, we're in an academic setting. Do not drop that. And now, Mary Juten, who will be with us as one of the original disruptors, innovators, creators, evolvers of law, a polymath, if there ever was one.
Okay,
Talk to us.
I don't know what a polymath is.
Well, look it up.
I don't have any device up here to look that up. First of all, thank you for having me here today. I'm a rule follower, so I was told to be provocative. So here goes. So how many of you know what tomorrow is, other than May 1st? Does anyone know that it's Law Day tomorrow? How many people know that? A few? Okay, so this year's message for the rule of law from the ABA, is rule of law and separation of powers. What do you think that means to the average American? Absolutely nothing. They don't care about it. We as attorneys, it's time, because now I'm an attorney, so both an accountant and attorney, so we need to wake up, because we need to not fear AI and robots. That's not your biggest fear. Your biggest fear should be looking in the mirror. Fear yourselves, because we have this special snowflake mindset, as Lawton mentioned. We're not special snowflakes, but I keep saying this over and over again. That's a great thing. We have a great opportunity to be both business people and professionals. We don't have to go for this monopoly anymore. The first picture there on just above me is a shout out to John Grant, who was, okay, he's back. John and I were working on an article that I wrote for the ABA on paraprofessionals, legal technicians, whatever you want to call them. And John has a great quote in the last one that came out, that we as a profession, we're sort of blocking everyone off. We're saying, only we can do this. And then we shut the door. So that's the visual of John's quote. And the little ode to UPL in this slide is, we just have to stop. It's like enough. We're over-regulated, self-regulated, whatever you want to call it. Josh King just wrote a great piece about what he'd like to see happen with regulation. We can be proud professionals, but we have to stop hiding behind this UPL and being professionals. Mainly, there we go. Mainly because every one of you, apparently I don't know tech quite. So there's pictures. Okay, in real life, look at those. Those are babies. Some kids know how to use the smartphone better than us. Like, I always get my son, who's a millennial, so he's like 21. I'm like, why? Why did they change this and now I can't remove the apps? So in real life, every one of us uses technology. Why, when we get to our offices, do we stop? And I know some of you in this room use technology a lot, and I'm sort of speaking to the converted, but part of the problem is that we are trying to keep this hallowed halls approach. However, and this is a little bit controversial, if you look at the continuum here, we've got books, and on the other side we have coding. I do not believe lawyers should code, unless that's what you want to do. lawyers should practice law. My doctor did not put in her practice management system that she uses to run her office, any more than my husband, who's an engineer, developed the project management system that he uses to manage $1 billion of spend. Why, as lawyers, do we have to control everything? We need to delegate. That's like one of the first rules that you learn in business school. So I agree with the whole business of legal. I, too, am going to be doing a business of delivering legal services course. Mine's online, and it's with Suffolk Law, and I'm super excited about it. We need to stop reinventing. Oh, now I can see the clock. We need to stop reinventing the wheel. We have this special snowflake mentality, but we can remove that and flip it around and say, let's take the best practices from engineering, from medical, and from accountancy. So I used to be an accountant, and I can tell you we did flat fees over 30 years ago. We got away from the billable hour, but we still recorded our hours. When you look at the whole idea of following the medical profession, I recently was doing some research and read Utah's report on using legal technicians. The comment was in there, only lawyers lawyer, and only doctors doctor, and only lawyers should lawyer. It's like my husband, who's an engineer, has an expression that doctors kill people one at a time, engineers kill people 100 at a time. So there's nothing in that saying about lawyers. Why do you have to have a JD in order to go help someone in court? It doesn't make any sense. So we need to broaden things up and start letting other people into our profession. One of my favorite little bits of research that I did was into where some of these new approaches, and we as a profession, we get all caught up in what we're calling things. And I agree with design thinking, I agree with process improvement, I agree with all of these things, but none of it's new. It's not new. That woman there is Mary Parker Follett. She was born in 1868, and she created a lot of the management principles that Drucker built upon, and then that was built upon in Japan. None of this stuff is new. And as you'll see later, all we don't need fancy technology. We need some Post-its, we need some markers, and we need people who are going to actually do something. That's why I was so excited to be invited here today and to hear that we're going to actually do a design sprint workshop. We're going to do something. Because I started Evolve Law a few years ago. The idea behind it was, hey, let's do sales and marketing for our technology companies. And then it turned into more of a, let's build this community and let's have lawyers touch the technology. And I'm excited that Evolve Law has now evolved into Above the Law, and I'm going to be spending my time working on access to justice through technology. And my kind of call for people is that we need to start putting clients first, attorneys second. We're at this fork in the road, so we can either go one way and start focusing like every other business where you want to know, what do my clients need? And even whether you're running a law firm or running a technology company, you need to look at your clients. And I would even say technology companies, your client is actually the end user, the client. So not necessarily the lawyers. Oops. So apparently I'm so excited about this that I keep running through the slides. So I think we need, as this conference is all about, less talk, more action, more technology. Jillian Hatfield, or Professor Hatfield, sorry, wrote this great book on rules for a flat world. And we have projects like Legal Tech for a Change, which is out of the Legal Innovation Center. We have these things going on, but they're aimed at either pro bono or big law. There's this huge swath, as Larry mentioned, 80% of this country can't get legal services, and that's not just people who are below the poverty line, not even close. Those are moderate means people, those are regular people. You know, I have friends who've had to hire lawyers who were like, I got to take money out of my IRA to pay for this. Like, this is a huge problem. So legal plans, which is another area where I'm going to spend my time. I'm on the Group Legal Services Association board. And this is a way, on the far right here, you have a mobile app for Legal Shield. And that's actually my app, so I crossed out my, my member number so you all can't use it. But the whole idea is they put a law firm in the palm of people's hands for $20 a month. That's access to justice. And it's all part of an overall plan. And what I would like people to think about doing is focus on meeting clients where they are. For me, for you, I mean, I was back there earlier thinking, oh, wow, I really like Lawton's shoes. I'm going to look on Zappos to see, she's now looking at her shoes. I'm going to look on Zappos to see those shoes. And then I got diverted and bought another pair of wedges while I was sitting back there. Zappos meets me where I want to be. I don't have any time to go to a shoe store. So we have to provide that access, whether it's through a legal plan, whether it's through an attorney that has a mobile app. That's what we need to do. So I did write the bar in February, and then my son afterwards said, okay, finally, now you're going to read the Game of Thrones books, because we can talk about it, because he goes to school and he's like big into the Game of Thrones. So I am going to tell people that you have to go to the wall. So those of you who know about Game of Thrones, at the wall, the people on the wall, they're fighting for the entire realm. So I think it's time that we all get together and fight for the entire realm. And I'd like us to have some sort of, not, I know it's probably too Pollyanna, but some pie-in-the-sky vision that I have is a tech coalition or a coalition of private people who are volunteering their time in order to advance the use of technology for access to justice. Thank you.
Thank you. She said she was a rule follower, and I just need you to know that as soon as it went oh, 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 and the red dot started flashing, she stopped. She's a rule follower. But thank you, Mary. And we're going to find out what polymath is. I bet most of you now know because you've already looked to see what it is. But here's another one. Patrick Pallas, right? You're going to join us? You're going to speak from the chair? You can speak from wherever you want to. But he is that lawyer who does put the client first, and he also, Yoga Palace?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Talk to us.
Love to. Thank you. So imagine for a minute if the legal profession looked like other professions. What would happen if, say, we have a pilot or a train engineer? If we had left the industries of building railroads and shipping products and flying people in airplanes from place to place and country to country, or developing airports, or building airplanes like Boeing, but we'd left all of that development for train engineers, or all of that development for pilots into the hands of train engineers and pilots. Only they could control their industry. Would we have the industry for the airline industry or for trains that we have? I mean, it's just, we wouldn't. I mean, it's ludicrous to think that just because you fly a plane or just because you drive a train, that you know the entire industry and you're the ones to control it, which is the craziness about who we are as lawyers, which is reason, and our theme today about radical collaboration is critical, because we have really an enormous industry to drive. But there's this problem, and there's this old saying about the eyes can't see what the mind doesn't know. It's hard to look over the walls of our silos to see the opportunities that exist out there. And I think pilots might not see how big the whole airline industry could have been, or railroad engineers. So I want to take a few minutes and talk about what that means as a lawyer. And I have that piece of the pie that's the small firm lawyer. And I know that there is some practitioners here, but across the 1.6 million lawyers in this country, 2/3 are solo and small practitioners. That's the biggest part of our audience. So I want to talk a little bit about what tech means to them. Every day it seems like some tech company is out there and says, I made fire. I made a wheel. I don't know what to do with it, though, and geez, I wish I had some legal application for this. And as law firms, we say, I know there's something that I need, and there's some things I wish I could get done, but I just have no idea how it is that we're going to do this. And it kind of reminds me of that scenario of chocolate and peanut butter, you know, walking. One guy walks one way, and one guy walks the other way, and they bump into each other, and suddenly it's a Reese's bar, right? It's that kind of idea. The answer to this really is partnerships, because lawyers don't know how to do what they want to do. They just know what they want to do. And tech companies have all these great tools, but have absolutely no idea in law how it is that they built it. How do we make it for lawyers? And there's a lot of opportunities there in this union when we put our heads together and look outside. And there's a lot of low-cost solutions out there, because with collaboration and innovation and problem solving, we build a lot of interesting products. And a lot of what I'm hearing about, and I think about, you know, the conversation we just had about Watson or about Ross, which is, you know, big. How do we democratize that? How do we break that down to the smallest common denominator so that everybody can get a piece of that and work that through their firms and through their clients? And that's part of what we've put together in my firm that I'm going to talk about. And I want to suggest that maybe out there amongst you, we need a Tinder for law firms. Right? We need a dating site for tech companies and small law firms to come together and join, all right? So I'm going to show you my attempt to do that in our firm with 5 examples of how it is you can partnership with tech companies and what you can build tech companies and how you can do that. And I'll start out this way by just suggesting that one of the biggest barriers for small firms is we can't afford to hire some tech company to build something from the bottom up. It's just too expensive. So there must be another way to do it. And I'm going to suggest the way to do it is to find a team, a partnership, a collaboration where I have my peanut butter and they have their chocolate come together. I'm going to show you 5 of these collaborations that we've done. And I might note, if you look at this, 1 firm, 5 ideas, 5 tech companies, 5 joint ventures, 18 months, 76% increase in cases and in revenue, no increase in advertising. This is why this makes sense for small firms. So this is a company called Manager. Manager has this great tool. It's a search engine. We thought that's great. We can kind of use one of those in our firm, but we need to do more. As a workers' compensation attorney, what we do is we manage workers' compensation cases, but the state has all our data. So we look out to Manager and say, can we partner with you? Can you create a key that goes into a government website, government database, and scrapes it every night at midnight and dumps all the data about our cases into our servers so we can then sort it the next morning? They said, sure, let's do that. And then we took their search tool and we applied it to everything they dropped into us. So we get this batch of hundreds, if not 1,000 pieces of data that come through us every morning. It is. So this is another partnership we have with a company called Coral Docs. And what they did is they brought us a tool. This is their Fire. We have this great tool, and what it does is when it reads a document, it tells you the most relevant thing about the document. But we don't know what to do with it. They brought us Alice in Wonderland as a book and ranked it from 1 to 999 most relevant words. Rabbit was the first. Can you use that, Palace? I think. Let me think about this. So what we did was we hired them to take all of those documents that Manager had gotten for us, had created for us, those hundreds that we now have somebody typing in a name for each one of the documents to put it in our database. And this program simply auto-names them all for us. So when we come to work in the morning, the 1,000 documents that came in have now been auto-named, placed into our database, and they get auto-sorted into everybody's Trello board, so when an attorney and paralegal come to work, their Trello board mail is already sorted out for them. They'd already been named, put in the database. We've done nothing and saved about 5 hours a day of our staff time by simply using this tool that Coral Docs came up with. And I might add, it's error-free. It's 100% accurate. We partnered with another company called 1400. they had been making calculators that you could put on a website, you know, mortgage calculators, whatever else. But I needed a calculator for a value of a case. And I said, can we do this? And they said, let's find out. And we worked together for a couple of months, and I gave them the content and the process and helped them understand how the law works. And we formulated a method that in 3 questions, my firm could tell anybody what the value of their case was down to $1 in Washington State for workers' compensation. And so people can go to our website, they put in 3 questions, and on the right-hand side you'll see instantly the dollar value of your case. It's free, it's accessible to everybody, and frankly, we use it to keep the government honest, because if they cut them short, they know what the real answer for the dollar value is the case is. It's also an access to justice tool. It's good for our marketing and goodwill. And we've had some 1,600 users in the last 6 months come and use it. We also had a partnership with LawDroid. I wanted a chatbot on our website because, again, we want to be able to disseminate information to everybody who comes to our office. And so we created a chatbot, again, pairing information. I know the area of law of workers' comp. It's been 25 years of my practice. And so I figured out a series of questions, and there's about 12 of them, where we could identify all the issues in your case no matter what fact pattern you have. And so we did this with LawDroid, and they created 10 questions online for free, accessible anytime. You answer 10 questions, it then gives you a list of your issues in your case, like a bar exam gives you your issues. The drop-downs then tell you what your rights and remedies are around those issues, and if then you want to know what to do, you can push an action button and it gives you the forms and the pleadings and the letters and the how-dos, and it's right there. Again, a great access to justice tool. It's goodwill marketing, and it's something that's useful to everybody out there, including the law firm. It's a partnership. This is another one that we created in our office, but then it gets bigger. So we needed an intake sheet. So for all, we call them P&Cs, potential new clients. So when a new client calls in, we start taking information on them. So we created a Google sheet that can make that very easy by asking about 15 questions. There's drop-downs to fill it in. And then all information gets zapped into our database. And we started creating this database. But we wanted to do something with that database that would be particularly useful for consistency of intakes and consistency of information. So we sent it over to Suffolk Law School and David Colarusso, who said, I think I can help you develop an algorithm with this. So we partnered with them for a couple of months, and sure enough, they made an algorithm. So now, and you'll see this 90 button in the corner, as we are in real time typing in the data for each case that comes in, it starts to spin for higher or lower, depending whether that fact makes a case we should take or we shouldn't take. 90 to 100, take that case. That's perfect. 0 to 10, don't take that case. Somewhere in between, you're going to make the choice. But now we have an algorithm that grows and learns every case we put in to be stronger and smarter to help us find consistent cases and make good choices. And so that leads me to this, since I'm right at 0. And I want to be a rule follower. I want to be that guy. It's really important to look out and build partnerships beyond your box, beyond your silo, right? We need to be pilots that can see the biggest issues out there. And for all of us, it's the biggest issues that even are in the smallest places. Like in my little firm in Tacoma, Washington, we're trying to do a couple of things to make things bigger. So I'm going to suggest to you that go out there, dream big, find your partners everywhere you can, and go build airports. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See, even small law can dream big, and even small law can be efficient. There's no excuse for the rest of us, right? You don't need lots of money. You don't need a big size. Now, let's talk about size. Marie, would you join us?
Yes, sure.
Well, that has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the world's largest law firm. Whoa, there I go again, getting my foot. You're going to sit there or you're going to stand?
Yeah, I was wondering, because I have no clickers, I'm not going to waste time. So that's something I've been meaning to do.
Okay.
Because, you know, I want to get a taste of the fake cow, you know?
She wants to touch the fake cow.
Yeah, and you know what? America is really good at making fake things. So
okay. Well, I need to tell you that you need to be nice to this woman. Do you know that in her body clock right now it's 9:17 p.m.? She came from Berlin, Germany yesterday, traveled in her language 7,000 6,523 kilometers, or in our language, 4,675 miles, to be here on behalf of the world's largest law firm. I think this is somebody we need to listen to because she is the CEO of Next Law Labs, which is the incubator for Dentons. Marie, you don't need your shoes.
Well, we'll see that.
Okay. It's on you now. Thank
Good.
you.
Yeah, and then we're starting with fake, and that's something that's striking me. I think to some extent, we're all in this sort of fake it until you make it in terms of legal innovation. And because Next Law Labs, which was created 3 years ago as the first accelerator, has somehow the privilege of having creating a trend, I'm willing today to share some of the lessons we learned so that, as sort of initiators of this fake it until we figure out a way, maybe we can give you some shortcut. Because indeed, there's a big trend these days. Everybody is creating his or her own incubation space, acceleration space. So we're a super gregarious industry. And now is the right time after 3 years to look back at what we did well, and what we have to improve, so that instead of being the first sheep, we keep on trying being a wolf. So indeed, I work for the largest law firm in the world, which somehow spoils my perspective, right? When you have natively 8,800 lawyers, which makes it about, 14,000 colleagues overall. And if that's not enough, we have a global referral network. So basically in every single jurisdiction in the world, except I think 2, but watch the space. So when we're not finished with this law firm, we can work with the smaller law firms, which are our preferred friends. This is somehow a schizophrenic task to undertake. So how do we start? Or my question is rather, why do we do what we do? And interestingly, it goes down to some of the elements that have been discussed here by Mary in particular, Patrick as well. Why are we doing innovation the way we do, using incubation spaces, testing in every possible way? And let me remind you what these ways are. We do investments. We have a special subsidiary, Next Law Venture, for that. But as pretty much everyone in this room, we also engage with startups in a different way, in co-innovation partnerships, or in all sorts of models. And we have other options, and so do you, right? We have the options to make to outsource, even to offshore certain services. So it's a broad range of things. And at the end of the day, when I'm looking at the range of possible options, I feel like the opportunities are almost too vast. And I'm asking, why and how do I want to spend the energy of this firm? And energy is an interesting term. We heard today somebody questioning the energy efficiency of the solutions. But when you're like me, in front of a giant tank of legal talent, plus our specialists, what do you do with the energy of people and with the money? How do you make sure that what you do and you undertake as legal innovation is worth it? Because it could be cool, to start testing in every possible direction and have random proof of concepts here and investments there. And my purpose is not to do legal innovation marketing. It's actually to drive change within this huge firm. But by doing that, I'm also thinking of the rest of the industry, this 80%. And that's what driving actually the strategy, the approach that I'm starting to draw for Next Law Labs in the future years. And actually, there are at these two ends of the spectrum. We're probably between access to justice and the law firms who can pay for all of these incubators. There's a space of people who. For whom legal innovation comes at a cost. I think of solo practitioners whom I met and who say, I don't have really the choice of making any mistake. If I choose to go with a startup, or if I choose to onboard a new technology, first there's the real cost, but there's also the investment cost. And if things go wrong, then it will take me a huge time to make a break-even on the decisions. So there's a risk that for these firms, the technology is not so obvious. And we cannot keep on developing products and solutions for dentons that will then go to the market if we're not sure that one day other firms and dentons will be able to afford them. So that has started to become almost an obsession for me. You know, not be completely crazy about this giant pool of opportunities that dentons and its ecosystem represent, but making sure that eventually the set of solutions that we design are affordable and scalable to a different pool of end users. And by different pool of end users, I don't necessarily mean people in our markets, but also people in broader market. Because if you think about it, I think there's a study that says that by 2030, 4 out of 5 consumer in the middle class will be outside of the USA and Europe. So, and I'm not talking here, I'm talking to people who do business law, not people who do B2C. There will need to be lawyers who come with our companies throughout the world to make the world be served by these lawyers. You know, there will need to be different business flows, and we want to build solutions that become essentially solution agnostic. So at this stage, maybe you think, okay, where is she going to? Is she talking about doing volume on certain solutions? Is this, making a pricing different, building something that is cheap? Actually, it's not. And my inspiration here is something that comes from, actually from India. And I'm thinking of an economic model that is inspired by, it's called a Gandhian economic model, which probably to our, Western mindset looks well less sexy in terms of diet than the, pepperoni pizza that we have in the hackathons or, this kind of stuff. But still, it's a thing that helps certain companies deliver completely different ranges of products and solutions by completely reinventing the model, the production model from the ground up. Not volume discounts, not produce economies of scale on the production of these tools. Completely rethinking it. And you've probably heard, for example, of the Tata Nano, which is this car that has been delivered 10 years ago by this company, Tata, giving a price tag to the designers, to the overall production chain, giving a price tag of $2,000. And this price tag, this price performance, was emphasized when they started thinking about the delivery model, the production model. Everybody involved from all aspects of the production chain knew that this was their challenges. So, design, the production materials, the logistics, the sales, they went all together to look for the best and the most price-efficient solution, which ended up in something completely crazy. The Tata Nano is a four-wheeler, right? It's a car. But people who were thinking what is the cheapest way, for example, to open the window, thought that they could use a system that was already existing for helicopters. And there are other things like the driving, I don't know the term in English, but I think it's engine or driving spin, is inspired from the two-wheelers, for example. Because the guys who had to produce that were challenged to say, well, forget about what we know about building a car. And I can tell you, the guys at Tata, they know how to build a car. They're also the owners of, prestigious firms, for example, in the UK, in automotive. So they would have the guys who know already how to build fantastic premium cars. They forgot everything and reinvented their Tata Nano. And they looked also for the best partnerships, and that's something that strikes me when we're talking about the efficiency in the way we deliver new legal solutions. The guys at Tata said, right, so I want the best who can do the best cooling system for a cheaper price. And they found it. And they went for the best engines, and they went to partner with a German firm for that, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, they made it. They created this brand new model, which for the price tag that is affordable in a larger market, delivers this mobility, plus everything, including modern design. And for me, who's a European, which delivers against the standard of the Euro 4 emission. So it's not something cheap that has been done, reducing artificially, stretching a few costs here and there, sacrificing on security and so on. You see the difference. So where I'm coming to is that all of us in our sort of rat race, for producing our own version of everything, we're probably not helping this industry deliver the Tata Nano that is going to serve what Marie or Patrick are talking about. And I think it may be time to think of how we compete in this saturated market, because I'm running, I hope to run Nexolab as a business, not as a charity and so on. And I want to make profit out of that. I want to build a Tata Nano with each of you for legal and make sure that we benefit. I'm not here for, access to justice is good, but we still want to be there as a profitable and beneficial model. So let's think about it for a moment, because at the end of the day, if all of us are overlapping the same research and development effort in a place where there's actually no or little money for research and development. I don't know about you, but at my law firm, essentially when there's money left at the end of the year, it is shared into within the partnership, and that's what is called the partnership model. So we don't have a huge tank of money, a huge pool of money to do R&D, especially if it's duplicating things that you guys have been doing. So several things here, and I'm out of the time. Let's stop duplicating. Let's admit that there's a moment when we are still a bit faking it, and that's fair enough. And this is called a proof of concept, and we may fail and so on. But let's share this in a bit of a more transparent and productive way, because at the end of the day, what we want is to move up the standards of this industry so that we can compete on things that will be really valuable and interesting. So just to close, I wanted to end with this quote by Charles Dickens, which is the opening of The Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times and it was the worst of time. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief and the epoch of incredulity. And we were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. We have to choose which way we want to go. I hope we can get there together. And not be afraid to go there barefoot or bare hands and come as you are. Thank you.
Absolutely the best. So we have a couple of minutes for a few questions, and we're going to make some audibles as we go, if that's okay, because we need to both do everything we want to do and respect your time. So any questions that anybody has? Yes.
All right, I think I'm going to shake it up. For those of you who don't know, I'm a little snarky and helpful. I'm going to ask everybody to join in on something that I want to confirm or deny, and then I'm going to ask you guys to figure out how we fix that if we confirm what I think is about to happen. So everybody raise your hand. Come on, guys. I know it's late. I didn't make you stand. If you're a lawyer, put your hand down. If you are law school faculty, hey, guys, hands up. I'm talking to you too. Law school faculty, put your hands down. If you are employed by Big Law, put your hands down. Okay, if you're a technologist, put your hands down. Okay, in this room, that leaves, if you're employed by Big Law, Teresa, put your hand down. Gotcha. Mid-law, okay, mid-law, put it back up. Sorry, Teresa. So the reason I'm saying this is I was curious about how many people are in this room who don't fit those 4 categories. If you've ever worked as support staff only, if that's your connection to Big Law, keep your hand up and everybody else put it down. Okay, that's a little scary, guys, because we've been running your lives for a long, long, long time. So how do we fix the diversity problem? Because that's what my question really is diversity in law is about more than just women and people of color. It's about diversity of thought as well. And how do we fix that? There's the question.
All right. I can start that ball rolling. I decided last year that I was going to stop hiring anybody in my office who was a lawyer or a paralegal because that's not who I needed in my office. I needed people from other areas. And so the last 4 hires and people who've never seen law, don't know anything about law, right? And they've come in and added really a tapestry of wealth to the firm because they know a lot of things that I don't know, and it helps us build out so we can offer products and services in a way that we never thought of before. So my answer, hire as many people outside of the law and bring them into your firm.
Wow, okay. Move up.
So before I went to law school, I worked for a couple years at one of Canada's largest law firms as the director of finance. So I would have had my hand still up. And we had a managing partner who thought that the 2 women who ran the firm, because I ran finance and IT and the other person did the rest of the departments, including HR, we sat with the lawyers. We didn't sit with our teams. We sat up on the floor and, I sat with the business lawyers, and that managing partner, she modeled this idea that there was no difference. There wasn't that staff versus lawyers. And she specifically hired people to break all of those barriers. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to lead. You have to just freaking do it. Like, that's my frustration is, and I'm not a patient person, it's not at the top of my good traits, but I mean, we just have to start making some changes, whether they're small or whether they're big, but they have to be made. We can't write any more of these reports. I refuse to read one more futures report from one more state. We have to make change. There's no reason to do other reports. Sorry, John. You know I love you, but I don't. I mean, we've got like, what, 4 reports? If you extrapolate how long it's taking to bring legal technicians in, and that's like somebody who's not a lawyer. We have to respect those people, because just like a nurse practitioner and a physician's assistant, those people can be there for certain people, and they should be an equal member of the legal professional team. And we just have to get on with it. If you extrapolate based on these reports, I think we'll all be well into our hundreds, well, I will be anyways, before we have paraprofessionals in every state.
And let me add to that, I would beg us, ban the word non-lawyers from your vocabulary.
Yep. Everyone's a legal professional.
Because we're the only profession that puts that as a non-word into our professional code of conduct. How possible is that? Non-lawyers are just like non-doctors and non-plumbers. There's no such thing. We are legal professionals. We may have a law degree. So let's be honest with the reality of what has just been said, and let's start acting differently.
That actually ties into my question. Should we repeal or somehow modify the rule in most jurisdictions, except for DC, that a lawyer is prohibited from partnering with a non-lawyer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yesterday.
A vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, I think the ayes have it. Okay, we can move on. Any other questions? Yes, please, John.
I was going to hit a similar
Stand
topic.
up, if you would, John. We want to see your pretty face.
Sure, sorry. Thanks. And I say this a little biased because I'm on the Board of Governors of the Oregon State Bar, sort of inspired by Mr. Palliser. But what is the role of regulatory reform, and how do we kick it in the butt?
Well, there absolutely has to be regulatory reform. And we have these handcuffs on us because the profession believes that we have to protect ourselves. And what it really is handcuffs being able to do what we need to do. Until we can share fees, we can't get investment that comes in or capital to grow. Until we share fees, we can't get the money in to help grow beyond our particular silos, get the people in that we need to practice law, right? I mean, there's an entire re-regulation that needs to occur with this profession. And we need to open the tent to everybody that's out there and call everybody legal professionals. Everybody comes under the tent. Everybody is under the same rules of ethics. And shift from the kind of regulation we have today to more like entity regulation, right? I mean, there's such a number of steps that we have to do, but it's part of a large platform that if it doesn't occur, then maintaining this status quo is going to lead us into failure, no matter how innovative we are. Until those regulations shift, we're going to continue to fail.
Thank you. Okay, we're running short on time, and so here's the audible, and Kat can overrule this. She has absolute prerogative. What I'm suggesting is we take a 10-minute break. We come back for the design sprint, which is what we all came here for. And I would encourage you, if you found some people in your midst that you think there's something all of you would like to discuss in the design sprint, would you find a table of your own when we come back in 10 minutes at 2:45? Kat?
Yeah, I would encourage you to self-form into groups if you have discovered some common interests, passions, and would like to tackle a problem.